what's going on, guys? Botch TV here, and I'm here with another character profile. This time we're going to do Bryan Outlaw, and now I know I did this in the past, but I felt like I had to revisit it and kind of talk about some of the things that maybe I didn't talk about in the last video, in the last edition of this. So, with that being said, Bryan Outlaw is a character that is entirely based on me. Most of the characters that I have created and that you've seen in the character profiles are based on my life in some degree. But Bryan Outlaw has my likeness thanks to Yams for the facial texture. I'll make sure to leave a link down in the description to his Twitter if you want to commission him. I believe he charges $20 for morphing your face, getting a facial texture, and morphing it onto your character. And this is the closest the character has ever really looked like me compared to 2K22, so I really like how this came out. But Bryan Outlaw, obviously from Manhattan, like all the other outlaws, but he's kind of the guy that holds the Outlaw family together. He is the glue that holds the family together. And he had to be the man of the house. He had to take on a huge responsibility with his father being gone, his father passing away and being gone, and that is something that I felt like I had to do in my real life, where my father had passed in 2003, and his family never really cared to be there, so my mother has always put me first, has always tried to help me get through life, and I always felt like I had to protect her. I had to be the one to hold our family. And yeah, she still has her mother and her mother and her dad, which are my grandparents, but it was just her and I for a really long time. And you know, she had boyfriends and things like that. Now she's married. Congratulations to my mother. She is married to a wonderful man. But for a long time, I was the only guy in her life, essentially. Aside from, you know, the guys that she went out with, I was the only consistent guy in her life. I was the only guy that ever really mattered to her, even more than her boyfriends and everything else. I was her number one, and I still am. And, you know, so I took a lot of that inspiration of Bryan Outlaw's character, who he is as a person, from who I am, trying to protect my family, protect the ones that I love. And, you know, he goes through all this trauma in his life at a very young age, just like I did. And he starts to harden in a way where he feels like he has to be the strong one all the time. He feels like he can't show any weakness because he is the glue that holds his family together. So if that starts to rip away, bad things will happen. And that's what I felt like as a child growing up. I felt like I couldn't tell anybody about, you know, some of the mental health issues that I had going on. And, you know, the things, because I was like, I gotta keep it together for my mother. For my mother, because if my mother's not all right, then, and if I start to be in shambles, then it all falls apart. So, you know, that kind of inner turmoil that Bryan Outlaw faces a lot in the storylines, and not just in storylines, but just as he's evolving in RCW and as he's going through things. That is a constant battle that he has to live with. Dealing with his own inner demons, along with trying to help his family and trying to be that glue that still holds it together. And now we see it now going on in RCW where Sky Outlaw is going through all this. You saw her in the last episode go back to New York from Houston. I recently moved to Texas, so I moved RCW's headquarters to Houston. And so, you know, going through all of that and saying, I want to go back to New York. I don't want you calling me. I don't want Luna coming looking for me. I don't want any of you to come looking for me. I will call you. I will let you know when I'm ready. And, you know, and then all you hear is, you know, her say, take care of yourself. And she hangs up the phone while on the flight from George W. Bush International Airport in Texas to JFK in New York City. So, and that is something that Bryan has to deal with internally. He has to start to realize, because he sees his sister as this tough, resilient person. And he's kind of molded that into them. It's been engraved into them. And, you know, with Sky, he has this weak spot for both of his sisters, and Luna and Sky, you know. And he's just trying to be that big brother. And even though Jason, his younger brother, you know, plays a role in that, they often look to Bryan just because of how he talks to them, philosophically, emotionally, everything. And so for Bryan to see his sisters be like that, you know, that's totally foreign to him. And he's just like, my family's falling apart, and I can't do anything about it. And, you know, he starts to, when he confesses in a couple seasons back, where he was abused too by an ex of his, which that was a real story. That actually did happen to me in real life. I was emotionally and verbally abused by a girlfriend of mine that I had. And I actually based another story like that for Sky Outlaw, because it happened 2 times. It happened twice. The one girl that I was with, she was my girlfriend, and the other one wasn't. It was kind of a weird situation anyhow. But those stories drew Bryan Outlaw and Sky Outlaw closer to where they feel like they could tell each other anything. Now we're seeing for the first time where Sky's not really telling him stuff, and that's going to screw with him mentally and mess around with him mentally. And so he tries to hide behind this tough exterior, but he's really vulnerable, and he shows this sense of vulnerability to very few people. Very, very few. And in terms of the voice and the way that he talks and the way he articulates himself in his promos, when I wanted to do the voice for him, it was very difficult, because I was thinking to myself, he is me, but I don't want it to be just like my normal talking voice like I'm speaking to you now. So I took a lot of inspiration from the Saw films of Jigsaw, Tobin Bell, the guy who played Jigsaw, John Kramer. And just the way he would talk and say, I want to play a game. And a lot of his lines were, you know, always very poetic. Live or die, make your choice. How much blood will you shed to save your life? Those who don't appreciate life don't deserve life. You know, those lines, they were just delivered with just bone-chilling emotion. And that's how I wanted Bryan Outlaw to deliver his lines. So when coming up with the voice for him, it was just like, maybe he can talk like in like almost like a whisper, kind of like Jigsaw, where, you know, Jigsaw would be like, I want to play a game. So Bryan Outlaw would be like, I want to play a game. You know, so it was kind of like one of those things where, you know, those characters kind of intertwined. And the way that Jigsaw's life was, you know, obviously he was this sick, twisted individual, but he wanted to teach people lessons in the most sadistic way possible. But here's the thing, unlike Bryan's not putting people into traps that kill them and forcing them to do those things. What he's doing is a lot of psychological warfare, where instead of actually torturing the victims, kind of like Jigsaw did or does in the films, he basically forces them to reflect on their life, to take a look deep inside themselves And that's kind of what Jigsaw does too. But Jigsaw has the other component where he tortures his victims. And so he kind of says the only torture that you're living through is the torture of being in your own head. The idea that you have to be in your own head. And I recently saw the Saw film that came out today. Saw X, whatever. And one of the lines that he had said in the film, Jigsaw, was that if you want to find the meaning of life, or if you find the meaning of life, you have found your soul. And he says another line, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's something to the effect of, this won't be easy. And nothing is worth having like life if it is, I believe is the line. So he's basically saying nothing in life is worth having if it's easy. And, you know, those two lines in the film, as I was watching it today, I was like, wow, like, that is, like, chilling. The delivery of his lines and everything else. So, like, and I've watched the Saw film since I was, like, 6 or 7 years old. Like, and I know that sounds wild, like a 6 or 7 year old watching those films, but I just loved the delivery of his lines and just the way he would talk and the language that he would use, and it was just so poetic. And that's what I loved about being able to play Luna and play Bryan, and to be able to have them both think this way. The youngest pupil of the Outlaw family and the oldest pupil finding common ground. And Luna often feels misunderstood, so everybody kind of goes to Bryan. Sky and Luna both go to Bryan for solace, and they both go to him for answers when they need something. So, you know, Luna feels like he's the only one that understands her. And so that's how they kind of bond, is that sort of psychological mutual understanding where Bryan's like, I'm not going to judge you by the crazy poetic stuff that you say, because you're smart in the way that you think. People may think it's sick and twisted, but from a psychological perspective, you're saying things that get people to think about their own lives. And that's what kind of Jigsaw does in his sick, twisted way. Yeah, he's capturing people and then putting them into torture chambers, basically. But in his own sick, twisted way, he's teaching people, don't steal, don't do this, don't do this. And it's almost like he's saying, I'm testing your will to live. And how far are you willing to go to survive my sick, twisted little game? And like, and even with Bryan, he always says stuff like karma and all that stuff comes back to haunt you. So, in a way, he tortures his opponents psychologically. He fucks with them so much that, like, it's almost liberating them. He's trying to help them in his weird, maybe sick, twisted way. And it's just such a fun character to play. And doing the voice is always fun too. And I really enjoy it. You know, I really enjoy taking these stories and developing these characters and making them feel like real people. And I hope that you guys find some type of, I guess, relation to them in a way, because that's my goal, is to help others find, relation, and to show that vulnerability is okay, and to teach life lessons with these characters in a way. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. I hope this clears up a lot of the questions that you guys may have. If you guys have any questions relating to any of the characters, please don't hesitate to put them in the comment section below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, as it helps out the channel as we are on the road to 800 subs. We greatly appreciate all of you, and I will catch you guys next time.